Hello and welcome back everyone. The Commodore 64 was a fantastic 8-bit home micro in the 80s. It was my first venture into the world of video games, or computer games as we called them in those days. It provided countless hours of entertainment on long winter nights, and it provided some of my best memories of childhood. One of those memories that stand out was The Last Ninja. This was a game that looked and sounded fantastic, and it played really well too, but it wasn't a game for the faint-hearted, as this game was seriously tough, but not all for the reasons you are thinking. The Last Ninja contains a blend of exploration, puzzle solving and combat. The object of the game is to guide the ninja protagonist on his journey to the palace of the evil shogun Kunitoki to assassinate him, avenge his clan, and retrieve the sacred scrolls. As the player progresses, Kunitoki's henchmen become more challenging as they learn the ways of the ninja. The interface consists of the opponent's energy and collected inventory on the right, and player's health on the bottom. The world is viewed in an isometric perspective, allowing the player to move in 8 directions. Movements are relative to the direction the main sprite is facing, but restricted to predefined paths upon inaccessible scenery. Precision must be used when navigating and jumping around obstacles, traps, and fatal features of the terrain. By approaching and kneeling at certain landmarks, such as shrines to Buddha and water fountains, an indication of what to collect next is revealed. These items are often hidden in trees or bushes, and flash shortly after a new screen has been entered. Attack moves are executed by combinations of directional controls with the fire button pressed, for attacking the opponent's head, torso and legs. Weapons, like the ninjato, nunchucks, staff, shuriken and smoke bombs, can also be equipped. The game was released way back in 1987, and my first experience of this game came in 1988. Not long after I had started high school. When I was in primary school, not many of my classmates had a computer, and those that did all had the ZX Spectrum, and I kind of expected this trend to be the same in high school. But it wasn't long before I found a few new mates who had a Commodore 64, and these mates had rich parents, and they all had the floppy drive. The floppy drive was something I had been hounding my parents for a good while now, but it was an expensive add-on, and they just said, you can load games from tape. And that was deflating to hear at the time, as tape games took ages. I really wanted to see for myself how fast the floppy drive was, and so one day after school, I went to a mate's and he said, pick a game. And then I noticed all of his games were originals. About 95% of my games were copies. And so I felt like a bit of a scaff sitting there in his house, knowing I had basically pirated my entire Commodore 64 game collection. But anyway, I picked The Last Ninja, and he fired up the Commodore 64, and after what seemed like only a few seconds compared to the tapes, the game started, and I was mightily impressed. The visuals were outstanding. This whole isometric viewpoint looked great. The heads-up display was large enough to clearly make everything out, and the controls felt a little awkward at first, but then it only took a few minutes to get the grasp of things. The sound was amazing and the tune sounded so good, and over the years, I think it's become quite an iconic tune from the Little Sid chip. The game was an absolute joy to play, and this felt like one of those magic discoveries you could only get on 8-bit home micros. You see, for every 100 bad games, there were about 20 really good games. But for every 100 really good games, there was one amazing game. And The Last Ninja falls into that amazing category. The game felt as if it was from the future, even though it was a year old by this point. Everything about it seemed like a real leap forward for the Commodore 64. The way the screen builds up the layers when you enter the next one looks superb. And it's super quick as well too. This game instantly hooked the player in as well. But it did have some frustrations with the gameplay. Back in those days, it wasn't uncommon for you to get stuck in a game, as it was not obvious what you should do or where you should go. And this was usually as a result of bad graphics. But the visuals in The Last Ninja are excellent. But sometimes it's tough to see where to go. For instance, in the wilderness, when you come to this bit, this just looked like the game had crashed. It's not obvious it was a cliff to climb, and I lost quite a bit of time here. And there is another bit where you descend a wall, and there is a gap that doesn't look like a gap, and if you climb down there, well, it's game over. The jumping as well was a little annoying in places, especially when trying to jump over the brown swampy bits or land on the rocks in the stream. The isometric viewpoint here doesn't lend itself too well to these kind of scenes, but regardless of that few little issues, they do not make this a bad game. This game was one of the best games to ever grace a Commodore 64, and I knew I had to have it for myself. Now, on that piracy thing, had this mate had this game on tape, I would well have copied it, but I didn't have a floppy drive, so I couldn't do that. But I did ask him if I could bring round my data recorder and copy this game from him, which he flat refused to do. This guy seemed to have some morals, or money, but whatever it was, it meant I was going to have to get a copy of this game from somewhere else. And it wasn't until I was just about finished with the Commodore 64 that I finally got my hands on it. This game came bundled with a compilation pack, The In Crowd, And it was probably the best game in that pack, to be fair. But rather than play it straight away, I saved it for last. And I played it for several hours. But I just got stuck at this bit. This bit right here. Even on emulation. I just could not ever get past this bit. But regardless of my failings to beat the game, I have nothing but good memories of this game. It's an absolute classic, and has to rank as one of the best games of all time, and not just on a Commodore 64. The game was so popular that it spawned a few sequels that I must confess I have never played. But I am not sure what System 3 were thinking about when they released a sequel with a rubber shuriken and ninja mask. This move caused a little bit of upset with retailers, and so many stores did not carry it. But I have been told that the sequels were all good as well, and I will be having a look at those, but they will be videos for another time. And that was my look back at The Last Ninja. If you liked this video, then please do all the usual like, comment and subscribe malarkey. And a massive thank you to all those who have subscribed and commented on my videos. Your feedback and support really does go a long way in helping the channel grow, and I do appreciate all of you, so it's a massive thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.